Listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to our webinar on solutions for time-saving, cost-effective, and volunteer-empowering ministry scheduling. I'd like to thank the Office of Divine Worship in the Diocese of Green Bay for hosting this webinar and inviting me to speak on the topic of solutions. My name is Linda Rantz, and just a little about me. My husband and I met about 17 years ago in church ministry. We both had quite a bit of experience under our belts already, and we continued to serve in ministry over these last 17 years in areas like liturgy, music, sound, acoustics, youth, and faith formation. We formed Ministry Solutions Expert because we really felt it was our calling to bring our experience and ideas to more churches. So before we get going, I'd like to ask a couple questions about your churches, and I'd like to take a quick poll. First thing we'd like to know is, hang on, let me get this one going here. What would you say is the size of your church? Go ahead and click on what you feel is if you're a small, medium, large, or a multi-parish community. Great. Looks like we have mostly large parishes and some multi-parish community and also a medium church in there, but nobody who's saying small. Maybe some people will join us later. Another question I'd like to ask is, could you estimate the number of ministry volunteers that you have? Would you say it's less than 100, between 100 and 200, 200 to 300, or 300 and more? And it can be a guess. Sometimes I know it's hard to know exactly how many volunteers you have, and thinking that a volunteer is a head count. So if somebody does 3 different jobs, they're still considered one minister. Okay, so we're kind of split. We're looks like about 30% of us are less than 100 and 40% are more than 300. So we have a pretty wide range in between. Okay, well, for today, we're going to be talking about a solution, and we're going to focus on ministry scheduling. Our agenda will be, we'll start with, where does the time fly? And we're all so busy, thinking about a solution might even be overwhelming. But is your time spent more on ministry or management? And how about the time of your volunteers? We're also going to talk about communications is the key. It's almost cliche to say that, but it really is true. And parishes always say they want better communications, but how do you get there? And then we're going to look at a solution by identifying a group and identifying a tool. I'll share that solution with you. And it's my belief that when you find a solution like this, like we're going to look at today, you're going to empower your volunteers, and that will in turn empower the laity. And then we'll talk about getting started. Now for the webinar today, if you have any questions during the webinar, I know in your side panel you have a place where you can ask some questions. And if you'll just go ahead and put your questions in there, I'll likely hold them for the end, and then in the last 15 minutes we'll take a look at those or any other questions. But just so you know, if you have any question that you've asked and we don't get to it during the webinar, you can be sure I'll follow up with you afterwards. So no need to worry about that. So let's just go ahead and talk about the first thing. Where does the time fly? I've never encountered a parish that wasn't busy, that didn't feel that it was tapped out to its fullest extent. But what are we actually accomplishing? In the years that I've been involved in ministry, there's been a sort of formula that's always been sort of, our pastors have always told us about, that if you take good homilies, add hospitality, and good music, it's going to come out in the end, you're going to equate to mass attendance. That's what's going to make people stick at your parish. And that's how you're going, and that mass attendance translates into your parish budget, basically. You want to have those people there at Mass. But times are changing, and this really, we feel, needs an upgrade. It's not quite as simple anymore. And so for us, homily is bigger. It becomes a message. Hospitality has to become connect. And music itself is not enough. It has to be an uplifting experience. Those things will lead to evangelization. So let's take a look as we investigate this to see what's happening with religion in the United States. So there was a lot of press not too long ago about a Pew Research study, primarily about a decline in the number of Catholics in the United States. And the study covered 2007 to 2014. I really thought, though, that they had another study that was really more important. It was the future of world religions based on population growth projections from 2010 to 2050. According to these numbers, in 2010, 83% of Americans were affiliated with a religion. 78% of them belonged to Christian faiths, 5% were all other faiths, and then 16% were unaffiliated. If current trends continue, in 2050, Christian faiths are going to decline to 66%, or about 2/3 of the U.S. population. All other faiths will have a slight increase, but the unaffiliated will grow to 26%. So about 1/4 of the U.S. population will not be affiliated with an organized religion. Interestingly, worldwide, the numbers are the reverse. Unaffiliated decreases around the world, and Christianity slightly increases. But it's interesting that this is happening in the U.S. Pew Research says that the causes are switching faiths and population changes. But I'd like to say, what are we in the United States? What are they not hearing from us? What's turning them or drawing them away? And we shouldn't really feel comfortable, even at 66%, the idea that 66% of the country is Christian, but the truth is, who's actually coming to church? So I looked at some Pew Research studies and extrapolated some numbers that would give us at least a sense of this. In 2010, the estimates were that 33% of Christians were attending weekly services, but only 24% of Catholics were going to Mass on Sunday. And it's possible that these numbers are even lower. So when you look at this chart, you'll see that not attending, the unaffiliated, and this group in here, and the only ones who are attending is a very small 24% or even less for Catholics. And yet, for the group that we have to reach, our communication tools are targeting basically the Sunday audience. We send out the Sunday bulletin, we make announcements at the end of Mass, we have groups setting up tables to give additional information. I would say that we're spending at least 80% of our effort on this 20% or less of the congregation, which means that we're focused on today and not looking ahead to 2050. And at the same time, as I said, every church employee I know is basically overworked and underpaid. So where are we headed? As an example, down the street from where I'm at is a local Christian church. And they put up this big sign. It's up for about 2 months, almost during the whole summer. And you can see it's a grill and chill neighborhood barbecue. It's free, hot dogs, inflatables, music, and more. And it's not even in their church building. It's down at a park, a big park down the road. And it's really a big event, and people love it. It's a wonderful and generous way to evangelize outside the church building. I had a friend from a local Catholic parish in the same neighborhood who said they mentioned it to their pastor as something that would be great for the Catholic parish to do. But the answer was that he didn't have enough volunteers and the staff is too busy to do something like this. He's just overwhelmed. So what are we called to do as Catholics? I took a look. I don't know if you are familiar with word clouds. You probably have seen them a lot. You take a bunch of text and you put it into this great little tool, and it gives you this graphic image, and the words that appear more frequently are the words that are bigger, as you'll see here on this illustration. Now, the text that I input was the body, the description of text from the apostolic letter on the new evangelization, the document that's been out for about 5 years now that's supposed to be guiding us on what we need to do as Catholics to reaching out not just to those who have never known a faith, but what they're calling the dechristianization effect, where those who have been catechized have left their faith. You'll notice that the biggest words here are Christian, there's life, you'll see faith, Jesus, God, church. What I love, this is a random way that it puts it together, but this one I loved because at the very top you can see up in here, it comes out and says, first action, proclaim Christ. And that's really what it is. This document speaks to evangelizing those in first world countries. And I'm so used to seeing third world countries that I had to stop for a minute and think, who's a first world country? And of course, that's our own country. So what does evangelization look like in the Catholic Church, and how much time can we put to it? And is it the obligation of the ordained or the laity? A priest friend said to me that many pastors look at evangelization as something that the laity has to pick up and go with, that there's just no time and it's just too big. Even if you did go out and find a whole bunch of new people to bring into the parish, there's no time to serve them. And we're just all overwhelmed. So if we go back to our chart showing who's not coming to church and who is coming to church, I would say that the changes that have to be made to avert those projections for 2050 have to do with determining on whether you are a homily, hospitality, and music church, where you're focused on mass attendance, or if you're moving towards the message, connect, and uplift to move towards evangelize. But how does a parish find the resources to do this? If you want to change the projections for 2050, we're going to have to reach out to the people who are going to be the 50 to 60-year-olds of 2050. And today, they are 15 to 25-year-olds. They are the ones who are going to be leading the church into 2050, and they're going to be the primary financial support for the church in 2050. So we're going to interact and engage with them. Where are they, and what are they doing? So as I said, 15 to 25-year-olds today. And what does communication look like for them? Well, first of all, 75% of all teens have smartphones. Sorry about that. 75% of teens have smartphones. 71% of teens use more than one social media site. And those social media sites, just so you know, 71% are on Facebook, but 50% are using Instagram, and 4 out of 10 are using Snapchat. So a lot of times when a parish feels great that they put up a Facebook page, I can tell you my own 18-year-old nephew told me he got off of Facebook because it's been taken over by old people, meaning obviously his aunt and uncle. And the typical teen exchanges 30 texts per day. Now, what about young adults and adults in general? 89% of 18 to 29-year-olds are using social media. 64% of all American adults own smartphones. And we're always worried about doing things and bringing on technology that's going to exclude certain generations. But I can tell you that a lot of people, obviously 64% own smartphones, and that number grows. Everything here that you're seeing, all of these numbers have to do with socializing. It's not about content. It's not about posting something somewhere that they go to find. Have you ever seen someone, a young person usually, with their head down, focused on their phone or their tablet, and you thought they should break away from that and look at the world and participate in the world? But I'll tell you, they are communicating with so many friends at that moment. They're socializing more than I did at that age. And good or bad, whether it's my cup of tea or not, that's the future. And if they're going to be your prime parishioners, your prime volunteers in the coming years, how are you communicating with them now? I want to show you a quote from a vice president at Microsoft. Microsoft, if you're not following tech trends, of course, they're one of the biggest tech companies in the world, and they have made a huge shift over the last couple of years, and this really captures it. Our goal is to better help people manage and make the most of their time in a mobile-first, cloud-first world. And that's what we're talking about too, when the subject of our whole webinar. We're talking about saving people time, about helping them move forward, and the whole rest of the world is looking at that as being a mobile and a cloud-based function. It's not going to go backwards. Technology is only going to move forward. And I'll tell you that I know the Vatican and the U.S. Catholic Bishop Organization have all recognized this. They all have improved their social media presence. There's the new app out from USCCB. And the Catholic bishops, I read in one of their documents, even created an office for media response, not just regular media, but social media response 24/7, so that they weren't behind the 8 ball when something came out. But at the parish level, are we so small at the parish level we don't have to be concerned about this? And I would say no. I would say that we have to see what's happening, because at some point the world's going to go on and the parishes are still going to be sitting there unable to communicate. So you need tools to reach out to today's youth and young adults, and even senior adults and seniors, or older adults and seniors. There's websites, we mentioned social media, and it's all overwhelming. How do you just imagine sitting down and creating that entire communications plan and getting it to go? It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it can't be half done. It has to really work. So I'd like to ask a question before we go on. How well is your parish doing with communications? Let me put up a quick poll here, and if you will just answer it. Are you great, you've got it handled, and you're already on board with all of this? Or mostly good, you're following a communications plan? Do you feel like you're so-so? You could use some improvement. You know it's out there, but you need to get going on it. Or not so good, you can't seem to get any movement on it, get any traction. We'll just give a second here for everybody to get an answer in. And a few more seconds here, so just pick one or the other. And I will tell you, I'm seeing the numbers here. I don't think you can see them on your side, but we are, right now, there is no one in the top 2 categories. No one's selected the first 2 categories that they're doing great or mostly good. It's 75% at so-so and 25% at not so good. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So the reason you're here, and with what I would like to offer you, is a solution. Not the full solution for the entire communications plan, but a solution to start moving in that direction. A solution is not about just fixing something one time and then having to repeat it each time the situation comes up. That's called a Band-Aid. A solution has to be a fix that not only fixes what you're looking at, but also connects to your parish mission and vision. And that sounds really like a big, lofty idea, but I'm telling you, it is doable. Since our subject today is ministry scheduling, I don't want to show you a Band-Aid for fixing ministry scheduling. I want to show you a solution that will take you on the way to bringing new technology tools into your community and help you connect with these 15 to 25-year-olds. Not excluding everybody else, but we certainly want to focus on the 15 to 25-year-olds. It all begins with selecting a group. You have to start somewhere. I never recommend taking a new tool or technology or anything like that and launching it to the entire parish community. I know there are some apps out there and they say, great, get the whole parish on it. I just find that that's a very big ask. I like to, and what I did was focus on one group, and it was the ministry volunteers. They're very diverse. They have different age groups, different backgrounds, different hobbies. They're connected to a lot of different groups within your parish community, but this is your core group. They are your most dedicated volunteers, in my opinion. They spend the most time at the parish. They stay in their ministries for the longest period of time, several years, many years, as a matter of fact, and some forever, and they're most likely to support you in your effort. So looking at that as being our group, let's talk first about some outdated tools that are out there. Now, this obviously is a very outdated tool, but you've got some other ones that you would think are current because they're digital, but they're still what I would say is outdated. This is a Word doc, an image of a Word doc. This is what I inherited when I took over liturgy at my parish. And it was managed by the parish secretary, bless her heart, and she would just take it every time it was time to create a new schedule, and I don't remember which ministry this was, probably lectors. She'd change the dates in the left-hand column, and she'd just either leave the squares where they were or rotate the names, but basically this is what it was, and it just rotated around. The thing with this, I'll tell you, besides being very tedious to do for the scheduler, it's not really fair scheduling for everyone else. And then if you have one person quit the ministry or a person add to the ministry, it's a lot of work to remove everyone. And I'll tell you that it also will lead to the point where people don't believe that they need to join and be a volunteer. So it's not a very productive tool. My first solution to this when I was doing liturgy before I found software was to take it into Excel. And I always like to think that I could create very beautiful Excel spreadsheets. You have to understand, Excel is a spreadsheet. It holds information laid out for you to read, but it is not a working database. There is a big difference there. Now, this method was a little bit fairer because we could look at a row going across and make sure that people were getting about the same number of assignments. We would take these and print these on huge pieces of paper and tape them up on the walls, one for every ministry, and then we would go through a list of all the emails we received and notes that got dropped off. I'm available for this. Don't schedule me here. My kids are at a camping trip, and we'd work our way through all of this information to try to come up with this. And then you can see our 1, 2, 3. We were assigning positions, and it was it took days and days. I mean, weeks just to prepare for it. We'd have everybody, 2 weeks ahead of time finish everything up. The other thing is that it was very difficult. You see, this is our little right column here is our availability column. And you can see they're not available on August 15th. Very difficult to track. And the problem with both Word and Excel is that it put the scheduling in the hands really of one person. I know that in some churches I've met, they have individual ministry leaders who are creating their own schedules, whether it's on Word or Excel, and then submitting it to this one very unlucky scheduler, whether it's the parish secretary or the liturgy director or the music director, who then has to consolidate all of those schedules together. It's not a communication tool. It's just not. And I've gone into many, many parishes where I walk in and I see these things taped up so that all of your volunteers have to arrive at the church and see them posted on the wall, or I will say even worse, just posted freely on a website. I cannot tell you how many parishes I've gone to, and I'm sorry if I hit a nerve with anyone, but I can read the names and first and last names of children who are scheduled to be at a church for a service. And we know that we're all about protecting vulnerable children, youth, and adults. So anyway, not really the best way to go. Okay. And overall, because it's so difficult to track the information and follow it, what ends up happening is that your volunteers find out that no matter how hard they work to tell you that they're available or they're not available, they still get scheduled at the wrong time. Their families get split up between different masses. There's this mistake or that mistake. And so to them, scheduling becomes a waste of time. They either leave ministry, stop volunteering, they gripe about it all the time, or they just stop giving availability and figure they'll show up when it's convenient. So what is the tool that works? What is the right tool? When my pastor asked me, because of course I'm probably the techiest person in the parish, and asked me to look at scheduling software, I brought on 3 different programs. I wanted to compare them and see what they actually did. And as I said, all programs will create a schedule. But what is the one that really brings in your volunteers to the process? Which is the one that really creates more than just a schedule, but offers the ability to expand into these other areas? And so if you haven't seen the name somewhere else on my materials, you'll see I went with Ministry Scheduler Pro by Rotunda Software. And the reason I chose it is that it is really easy for the scheduler, but more for what it does for the volunteers. I will tell you, and I've been saying this over and over, I've spoken at a couple conferences and talked to parishes and pastors all the time and liturgy directors. It really does double as a communications tool. My main reason for choosing this program was because it was cloud-based. And a lot of software will say that they will put your schedules up on the cloud or connect to the cloud, but don't be fooled. This one is different in that it creates a schedule for the service, for the Mass, where the schedule's up there, you can post resources to it, it's in real time, and your volunteers are able to log in and look at it and even put notes on the schedule for that day, like a music person. You know, does anybody want to meet to practice the psalm ahead of time? It's just, it really does empower your volunteers. Now, I chose it before it came out with the mobile app, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but that's just amazing. It also has text messaging in it, which is another great feature. So this is what I found to be the best tool, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I really like about this software. So first of all, MSP Honors Preferences and Availability. And so for those of us with a lot of experience or any experience at all working with volunteers, we know that it can be many times more like trying to herd cats. MSP will provide you with tools to make it easier for your schedulers and your volunteers. So they set up their preferences. They can let you know their preferences. You know how it is. These volunteers have certain masses they want to go to. Their kids might be going to the Sunday school or whatever you call the children's faith formation classes. And so they have to be at a particular mass or, you know, sports, whatever it is that tells them where or when they want to be there. But they have preferences for when they serve. They also want to tell you their availability, and it might be something very standard. It might be that, hey, my kid is not available the first weekend, you know, we're talking altar service, the first weekend of every month my kid is gone because of whatever commitment, and they can put that in there. Or, of course, they can go in and actually just say, hey, we're on vacation, or the kids are at camp, whatever it happens to be. So the software will collect that information, and imagine how you're collecting it right now. You're either tracking it on email or a stack of letters on your desk or a bunch of Post-it notes, but this is where they're going to put that information in for you. MSP Honors Relationships. Now, the relationship we're talking about mostly will be a family. And how many times have you had it where the scheduling was such that mom got scheduled at the 9 o'clock Mass and dad and two of the kids got scheduled at the 11, and it's just a hassle. It's very hard to do on your own. I mean, it's a very detailed type of thing to keep track of. So MSP, when you put your volunteers in, you're going to link them as family members. It's going to know that this family is here, and if it schedules one of them, it's not going to schedule the others at a different Mass. The other thing I really like about the family feature is that if you look at our picture here of this particular family, you've got a very young child who can't be alone in the pews. So let's say mom and dad are both ministers and the two older kids are altar servers. You can't have them all scheduled. The system would try to do that because it's trying to schedule all the family members together at the same Mass, but now you've got a youngster by himself. So we have what we call a babysitter feature. I just love this. So you can designate the parents, and if any of the other two kids are old enough to sit alone with the younger brother or sister, you can designate them as babysitters. And what it means is that even if that family gets scheduled, they're not all going to be scheduled because the system knows somebody has to stay in the pew with Junior over here. The other relationship that it's going to honor is what we call teams. And teams are people, whether they're related or not, who want to work together. For me, and at the parish I was in, this mostly related to those who took communion to the homebound. There were certain people that partnered up. They always did that ministry together. And so when they were scheduled as a team. Ushers get scheduled as a team. That's a very common thing. It's the same group of ushers who will serve at any particular Mass. MSP also honors what we call roles. Now, there's a couple different types of roles. One role would be the qualification for a certain ministry. So you have a role that you can fill if you've been approved as an extraordinary minister of communion. You would be qualified for that role if you've been approved as a lector. So those roles are assigned. And it's great because once you've gotten those qualifications, as the system is sending out requests to say, hey, we need a lector at the 9 o'clock Mass, it's only going to send it to lectors. The system will know that you're not a lector, so you're not going to be getting tons of emails that don't relate to you. The other type of role that it really is wonderful with is the ministry leaders. A lot of churches, there's a hesitation on behalf of these ministry leaders for the different volunteer groups because they feel like any software that comes in will be more like Word or Excel where it's one person driven. And this is not. You can assign, you can delegate responsibilities to ministry leaders so that they're able to go in, especially a music director, they're able to go in because you're not just going to randomly schedule somebody as a cantor. The music director is going to have a very specific reason that somebody is scheduled at a certain Mass. So that can all be allowed for. And the other thing that is great about MSP, Ministry Scheduler Pro, is that it can juggle, and that's the easiest way for me to explain it. When you're talking about, first and foremost, considering families, preferences, availability, the Mass schedule, giving a fair distribution of assignments, somebody who only wants to serve once a month, all these things come into play. MSP can do that. But on the other hand, we have a lot of multi-parish communities, and a lot of times there's even multiple clergy or deacons who are covering all these different ministries. Sometimes the volunteers are specific to one parish, sometimes they're going between the parishes. This is great because, I mean, I can't even imagine trying to schedule that manually, but that can be done here in MSP. We help you, we'll show you how to set it up, and this is going to keep track of it and help you create those schedules. I did a video for a parish community in Brooklyn, New York, that has 4 locations, 4 different places that they have to manage Masses at, and they had 4 priests, a retired bishop, and 4 deacons who all move, and their Masses cover 3 different languages. So all of those things together, imagine just scheduling clergy in those areas. And so anyway, I have that video. If you'd like a link, in the little question box, just put a thing about multi-parish video, send me the link or something like that. And when the webinar is over, I'll go back and send you that link so you can see how this system will take all that information and auto-schedule that for you. All right, the best thing about MSP is that it communicates. And this is an image, it just shows the iPhone or Android app that came out for Ministry Scheduler Pro. It is probably what your volunteers will see most of out of MSP. They're not going to see what you would call the backbones, the structure of it. They're almost all going to use the phone app, and that's the bulk of the time they'll see it. It's amazing. It's an amazing tool, and I just will show you here a quick screenshot. So this is a volunteer who has clicked on the first tab down here at the bottom. You'll see the My Schedule tab. And this happens to be one of the musicians who also has some sacristan duty. And it tells this person what their assignments are. Now, if they can click on that first assignment, let's say May 30th, which obviously is past or could be for next year, but that will open up that particular Mass. And right then and there on that screen, it's going to have a button that says Request a Sub. So no more phone calling, no more phone trees, no more calling the office, at some 6 o'clock in the morning, hoping somebody gets a voicemail saying, hey, I can't make it. It sends out a note, and so the ministry leaders are going to see it. You're going to see it as a scheduler, but all of the people who could fill in as a sub, as for, let's say, that sacristan, are going to see it. And that's how quick it is. And that's what volunteers love. It's made it easy for them. The next tab over, and I'm just jumping through the basics here. The next tab over, which is open positions, imagine where your volunteers are driving to Mass in the morning and they're they're the early birds where they come 20 minutes before Mass starts, and they happen to say, well, let me see if they need a extraordinary minister today. I'm not scheduled, but let me just see. And they click on open positions, and they see that somebody at last minute asked for a sub. Right then and there, they can say volunteer now, and they can accept that position. Now, the other thing that can happen is that will happen is the system during the week will send out emails to people who are qualified for certain positions to say, hey, these positions are open, you're not scheduled already, and you are qualified, would you like to take any of these positions? And then these last two tabs for My Profile, where you can set up and change your availability, and also My Setting, or the settings, will let you go in and even update the settings for other members of your family, because remember, you're linked together as a family. It's a great tool. Now, the other way that people can access their schedules if they would like to, and it has the same information and it might be easier for you to see, is the cloud terminal or the web terminal on the cloud. I like to call it the cloud terminal. And you can see that we have clicked to open the page specific for this June 14th Mass. Now remember, everything you're seeing here, it doesn't look this way on the app, the phone app, but it's all accessible from the phone. And if you have a phone like I do, a Windows phone, which doesn't use the MSP app, I just open the website because I have a browser on my phone. So this is just a browser window. All of the browsers will open it. But you can see, and this was really what most pastors and liturgy directors loved when we were giving an in-person display, is this ability to add notes over here. And you can see, look, information is power, and I am all about letting all the ministers at a Mass know what's happening. I think that's where they become most involved because they know they're in the loop. Nothing makes an usher more cranky than when they walk in and there's a second collection and there's baptism families and rows to be reserved, and nobody knew. Nobody told them. It's just some note on a bulletin board. So we got real good at posting notes to let our community know, our volunteers know what was happening. Now, over here on the resources side, for every single Mass, you have the U.S. Catholic Bishops' daily readings, and also the audio link for the readings. This is just in there. So if a lector is assigned at a Mass and they open this up, they can listen to the audio readings, which is wonderful for working on pronunciation. And I bought pronunciation guides to put in our sacristy. So when the lectors came in on Sunday morning and said, how's this word name, Bible name pronounced? And we were going to a pronunciation guide. Well, here, you can just click and open it directly from the U.S. Catholic Bishop site and get the reading. So these are huge features. And then we uploaded music planners. We got to the point where our music director no longer printed music planners or music menus, whatever you call them. They were uploaded to the Mass, and we told our choirs to go and download it and print it. So we cut back on paper, we cut back on printing costs, and everybody was responsible. That's, again, that empowering, is making your group responsible for what they have. Okay, so I've shown you really what the volunteers see, what makes it so great for your volunteers. And of course, you're thinking to yourself, how does it do all this? It's really, the first thing I want you to know is that Rotunda has fantastic tech support, and you are never alone. It is amazing, and they understand and they know the algorithm that is behind it, and they're there to help you to get the settings set up when you first set up your software. But the truth is, somebody, at least one person, and most of the licenses, up to 4 installations installed on 4 computers. And so it just depends on how you set it up. If you have 4 people who are involved with scheduling, maybe the pastor has an installation, maybe the liturgy coordinator, maybe the music director, if they're all different. It just depends on your setup. But you install software, and then you're going to set up the basics of your group, of how your church works, how your parish works. You're first going to have, and this is just a screenshot of the admin panel, and you're first going to set up all your volunteers. Now, you'll be happy to know if you use another program like Parish Soft or PDS, and you have it set up with, and your volunteers are loaded in there with their titles, there is a way to export and integrate ParishSoft or PDS into MSP. For us, I just took an Excel sheet because that's, you saw I had an Excel sheet, and I just imported from my Excel sheet. It was just much faster. And so you'll set up your volunteers. The next important part to set up are the ministries. And this is not the order you set them up, but just so you know. And you're going to have ministries, and you can see we've got extraordinary ministers of the host or the chalice, and then we broke ours out. It worked for us to have daily host, daily chalice, or school host, school chalice. Again, your setup may be different, and my part is to help you to give suggestions and help you to understand how your parish works and how you might best want to set it up here in the system. If your question gets very, very techy, then of course we're going to go to tech support because that's what they're there for. And the other main area is then to set up your weekly services. And this is just, I've got it collapsed so you can't see the list of all of the ministers. But if we were to open up this Sunday morning at 9 o'clock Mass right here, it would list all the different people who are needed, including the clergy. We scheduled our clergy, even though we had one, but it was nice because he got his text reminders. Not that he forgets, but you know, when there's special holy days and school masses, it was always nice for him to see, and then it was on his calendar. And then it would say 2 lectors and how many extraordinary ministers and how many altar servers. And so you set that part up right there. And that's the basic. And then when you first get started, you're going to use the emailer tool to contact all your volunteers and say, please go in, log in to your private site and update your availability. And so that gets their availability in. So you're building this information, and they're able to say, as they look at the list of services, oh yeah, I prefer that 9 o'clock. I'm also available on the Wednesday at 8. And you might notice in here too, we even put our music rehearsals in ours. That's a different conversation, but if you're in music ministry and you'd like to know more about that, I'd love to tell you what a powerful thing that was for our music groups and how that helped them to grow. Okay, then we're ready now to set up our schedule. And so I would open up, you can see the way I name my particular schedules, that I like to schedule by liturgical season. I just think it's a very catechetical approach. So I put that in there, and this would say create. I hit a create button, and I get what they call a skeleton schedule that shows every position that needs to be filled. I do some tweaking on it. That's a lot of detail we don't have to do today, but eventually I'm going to hit my favorite button of all time, commence scheduling. And this is going to run the algorithm that is the key to MSP. It's just this most amazing thing. Your volunteers will never see it, but trust me, it's figuring out who can do what, who wants to do what, who's available, what's needed, how is it fairly distributed, and it can run. I mean, I've run one, it took 5 to 6 minutes for it. Now, that's pretty long when you're thinking computer time maybe, but think of how long it takes you to go through and figure out all those if, ands, or buts. Okay, so it is saving you staff time of doing this. It's saving you volunteer hours of whoever might be doing that. It's creating fair schedules. And as I said, it's going to put together a schedule for you. Now, some things may not be filled that you're going to want to look at. There is still human interaction with the scheduling process, but commence scheduling is always a very happy day in the scheduling sequence. All right, so what happens if you're interested in getting started, if you want to think about this, if you want to look forward? Well, as I said, a full communications plan to take your church to look forward to 2050 is wonderful, and you do need a communications plan, but it's always going to be implemented in steps. You're not going to try to just try to create something and just apply it straight across. So you're going to take your first best step. And as I said, get your core group involved and get a communications tool, which I think MSP is the best one out there for you, and that will take you in the right direction. Now, we talked about this being cost effective. So I want you to think, I'm not going to ask you to answer, but what is the cost to your parish for creating and managing ministry schedules? I know at our parish, we had hired a person, I was doing liturgy, but we had to hire somebody, and she was hired for 17 hours a week, and the bulk of her time was just handling all the requests, all the subs, all the stuff that came in, filling out the forms, you know, because by the time she got a new set of schedules out, she was asking for information for the next set. So that was an actual staff person. But you also want to keep in mind that volunteer hours are not free. So you could be using those volunteer hours somewhere else to offset a cost somewhere else. So don't consider volunteer hours to just be free. So the next thing you'll want to know, and you should ask, is MSP what you would call risk-free if you make a decision to go in that direction? Well, nothing is risk-free, of course, but you need to know, it's one of my best favorite things to tell you about. With MSP, you get a 6-month money-back guarantee. So if you decide to step forward with it, you're going to buy a license. And that license is going to give you 6 months to work with the software, get it set up, get your tech support, get me involved, whatever it is, to get these schedules running, launch your first set of schedules, see what your volunteers say. By the end of 6 months, if you think that there's, for some reason, that you don't want to continue with MSP, there's a no questions asked. Of course, I will call you and say, oh my gosh, did we not fulfill your needs? I mean, I'd like to know, but you are entitled to 100% money back guarantee. So there's no risk in getting started. So what is the cost? It depends on the number of volunteers. It's grouped by 100. I'd love to, I'll give you a location for the Rotunda website, the Ministry Scheduler Pro website, to look at the different rates. But basically, those licenses that I spoke about start at $275 for 100 volunteers. Now, is there a recurring cost? Yes, there's what's called a monthly maintenance fee. So after the first 6 months, if you decide to stay with it, then you're paying for a maintenance fee, because you got to remember, you're keeping data on the cloud, and there's no place that gives you free data on the cloud generally, other than like maybe a Dropbox, which is limited. But it's like you have storage up there. You've got the app, you've got all the features and all the upgrades. Your software will always be kept updated, and you'll get all of that and for a monthly maintenance fee. Now that is paid 12 months at a time. So 6 months. So let's say you had 100 volunteers, you're going to pay the $275. And that's for 6 months, and 6 months from today, then you would start paying 12 times $18. Okay, so that explains that, but then of course the next thing is, for the webinar, Ministry Scheduler Pro and Rotunda offer a special, 20% off the cost of any license, and that's available today because the webinar is today. Your promo code is webinar. I'm going to give you the website address in a second, although you're always welcome to contact me directly and I can help you with that. But you'll take 20, so on that $275 license, 20% of that is like $55 or something. So that license is probably closer to $220. Okay, so that is that part of it. So this is the contact information. I'm going to leave this up that you would need. Ministry Scheduler Pro, they have a toll-free number, and they are there to help you. They're wonderful. MinistrySchedulerPro.com is the website. You can find tutorials and more information and testimonials, tons of testimonials. If you had questions about other churches in your area who are already using the software, you could let us know. If you have a question and you want to put anything in the Ask a Question box, you can see that. And again, and I see somebody is asking for that multi-parish video. I definitely will send that out. And if you'd like that, just put a note in there for the multi-parish video. I'll be sure to send you that link so you could watch that. My email address is here, linda@ministrysolutions.expert. And there is a direct phone number for me. And if you know about QR codes, that is a QR code right there for my business card. And you're welcome to reach out to me. So I don't see any other questions unless somebody wants to pop something in. But otherwise, I thank, again, the Diocese of Green Bay and the Office of Divine Worship for allowing us to speak about this. I will follow up with all of you with a quick email just to see if there was anything else that you wanted. But otherwise, thank you very much for attending. I'll leave this page up for just a little bit and mute my microphone so you can collect that contact information. But thank you very much for joining us on our webinar.